Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Viking Chats podcast. And I'm delighted to be joined today by none other than Mr. Chris Webb, the estate agent. Chris, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on, and well done for doing your intros live, by the way. I gave up on doing live introductions to my podcast a long time ago because I used to get them wrong so many times. I used to frustrate the guests. So well done for still sticking with it.
Cheers. I think I had one yesterday with Dan, and it was an interesting one because I'd got caught in the rain. I was post gym workout as well. I was not looking pretty, so I got fitted in a caveat of sorry I look so appalling, but on we go with the show. So Chris, look, for those out there who are not familiar with Mr. Chris Webb, give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So property through and through, whether by choice or not by choice, who knows, sort of thing. But I started being an estate agent when I was 18 years old, which was quite a long time ago now, and very quickly sort of rose to the ranks. So sort of you name a job in estate agency, I've probably done it, from sort of junior negotiator, where my only job was to do viewings 6 days a week, and that was probably 20 viewings a day in total. So you got some serious mileage on your car doing that, right through from junior negotiator, senior negotiator, lister, branch manager, senior branch manager, regional director, national performance director, and then now owner of the estate agent consultancy. So I've had some mileage, hence the wrinkles and whatever else, and hairline, is because I've literally done the M25 estate agency.
On your webcam is doing a great job.
Well, I think they've got this new invention called Botox, which is working fantastically, I should say. So yes, that along with the filter, you wouldn't guess it, but yes, it's working over time.
Your smile still works, so you've obviously got good Botox. Jabber, whatever you call them, as you can tell, never been near a Botox needle. So yeah, great to have you on. So that was very much was that quite a corporate background you were in? I mean, that list of titles sounds like a quite corporate entity to me.
So I started off with an independent estate agency. So lots of people know Ian McKenzie from the Guild, and Ian's kind of known from events and being Ian McKenzie. So I was Ian's negotiator effectively when he had his own estate agency. So anyone to blame, it's Ian, me being around. So I was with Ian at independent estate agency until I was 23, 24 in that sort of direction. Went traveling for a year at the end of that. And then as soon as I came back, Ian said, "Oh, I'm now a franchise director with this company. Come work for me," basically. So that was a franchise base. Then from there, I went to God, it's depressing when you can't remember, isn't it? Like it's that long ago. Then I went over to
You're just so old. It's
I know, literally. Tell me about it. It's all gone black. It's all gone black and white and grainy. And then I went to a Winkworth franchise. Then I went to Countrywide because I feel like, are you even an estate agent? Even didn't go to Countrywide for a period of time. And then from there, I went to the Property Franchise Group. So that was sort of the round. So a little bit of a mix of both. Certainly, I enjoyed more the franchise/independent point of view rather than the corporate point of view. Not a fan of a spreadsheet. I like dealing with people. I like selling properties. I don't like dealing with Excel spreadsheets for 10 hours a day and on conference calls.
It's slightly more personal business, right? Both as an operation, but also the relationships you have with your clients and customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was sort of the journey. And when I joined the Property Franchise Group, that was my first kind of off the tools point of view. And I was looking after franchisees then and giving them sort of advice on how to make their businesses better, which is fantastic. I did that for about 5 years. But when you're dealing with that number of franchisees, it's, I don't want to say exhausting, but like your phone does not stop ringing. Like I would say to people, like, you've got 10 minutes of my time. Like, what do you need? And that it didn't really feel to me like a fantastic service in the grand scheme of things. So launched the estate agent consultancy 2.5 years ago now, with the goal of making estate agency obvious choice in their local marketplace. We only deal with a certain number of agents at any one time, just to make sure that we make sure they do as well as they possibly can do.
But coming back also to what you said, so that you can build those relationships, so you can understand, because not every agency is the same, right? They don't all have the same objectives or growth plans or ambitions. They operate in different markets, be that sales, lettings, and then the segments within there. I think you've got to have kind of a restricted number of clients, right? Otherwise, you become a commodity rather than
exactly
a valuable asset.
And the first thing I'll always say to any client I work with is like, what do you want your business to actually look like? Do you actually want it to be, do you want to have loads of staff, or do you want to, just be a one-person band, or, literally it's your business. Now, there is no wrong answer here. If you're like, I want to be a one-person band and just sell 2 houses a month, like, okay, cool, no problems at all. If you go, actually, I want to be a massive business, I want to be on this area and that area and have an, like, great, okay, we can kind of go in a different direction for that. So it's not for me to kind of advise them about which direction to take their business in, because it's their business ultimately. I don't want to take them in a certain direction and they're like, Chris, I'm working 12 hours a day. And I'm like, well, what did you want? I only want to work 6 hours a day and pick my kids up from school, but I've just dragged you in this direction. So it's about kind of working out what's right for them and then kind of making a plan together.
And is there, I mean, obviously you apply your skills to, like you said, whatever the clients need. Is there a particular area of that you particularly enjoy?
I think that the best part of it, so although I've got a huge amount of estate agency experience, I would say that the amount of time I actually coach people on being an estate agent, I would say is like 20% of my time. The 80%, so very rarely will I say to them, on evaluation, when they say this, you say that, and all this sort of salesy training. That's a very, 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 very small part of my job. The majority of it is just marketing. The majority of it is, I'll deal with a estate agent. I'm like, great, rank yourself from 0 to 10 on how good you are being an estate agent. They'll turn around and go, oh, Chris, I'm a 9 out of 10 estate agent. Like,
yeah,
that's really good.
Well, they're all 9.5.
Well, the humble ones go like 7.5, but that's kind of where it sits. It's always from 7.5 to like 9. That's always where we look at. And I'll go, great, okay, well, if I walk down the high street in your local town and said, do you know Christian estate agents? How well do you reckon you're known? They're like, well, I don't know, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. I'm like, well, okay, well, where's the fix in your business? Is it me making you from a 9 out of 10 agent to make you a 10 out of 10 estate agent? Or is it me turning you from a 2 to like an 8 with a guy who actually knows you? So it's about looking at where the pinch points are in your business and actually doubling down on those.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So look, I came across you, for want of a better phrase. I believe it was the Women in Estate Agency Conference.
Yes.
When you did your very personal, very brave talk about your...
No, that was PropX. That was PropX, that one.
Oh, was that PropX? Sorry,
yes.
It was PropX. So we first met Women in Estate Agency. You then did your very, like I said, very raw, very open, very honest conversation at PropX, and I think you also subsequently did a similar chat for us within the Boys Club.
I did, yes. Ben dragged me onto a video call for the Boys Club, and I then proceeded to cry for the next half period of time. So yeah, it was a very raw personal thing.
The Boys Club is a really healthy thing to happen. Now, look, we talked about this briefly before we jumped online. I don't really want to talk too much about your particular story, because I feel like that is your story to share, and some people already know your story. But I think to kind of summarize that in the briefest of ways, you basically were the unhappiest you could be, despite being successful within your employed career. You had reached the halcyon of unhappiness. You had reached that point where you felt there was only one thing left to do, and you had gone so far as to plan it, and you literally stepped back right at the brink from making that final step that cannot be unmade. And like I said, I don't want to talk so much about your story, because I think I'm incredibly impressed is not the word. I can't find the right words to enunciate myself right now. But the courage it took for you to share that story, even in a closed small circle room, would have been amazing. To stand up on a stage in front of, I think it was about 500 people, somewhere in the region of that, and talk about this terrifying but incredible journey that you had been on, when there are so many conversations about mental health. And one of the issues we have with men, with us boys, we're not good at talking, we're not good at sharing, we're not good at being vulnerable, and pretty much every bit of research shows that that is a major contributor to the issues that we see within men, and particularly young men today. What I wanted to touch on was that must have been absolutely terrifying up until that point. And doing that, Christ, I think I would have probably had to go and have several stiff drinks and then probably sleep for a couple of days to overcome the emotion of that day. And I'm sure off the back of that, I said, we roped you into the boys' club and delightfully got you to recount the whole story all over again. And I'm sure this has prompted a lot of messages, but also a lot of very complex conversations with people. I'm sure you've had people confide in you and everything else. I wanted to talk to you about how you kind of felt since unburdened yourself, I don't think is the right word, but since you shared that experience with everyone, what has the last year or so been like, as you know, as that's kind of bedded in and the dust has settled a little bit? You know, do you feel good about it? Do you regret it? You know, are there unexpected things that have come out as a result of it?
I think that I certainly don't regret it. And I know I'm okay to swear on the podcast because I listened to a few episodes. I heard the Russell Quirk one, obviously lots of swearing from Russell. So I'm okay to say I was fucking shitting myself before I went on stage, most definitely. And I'm a big fan of kind of rehearsing things and making sure you kind of know it off by heart. So, you know, it's all about kind of the amount of work you put into the actual event. And I remember printing off every single word, you know, on very big letters on an A4 bit of paper, literally so I could just read it verbatim. Because I thought to myself, if I have to kind of remember any of this, like, I'm in trouble. And I remember
doing that process. Did you feel that, like, rehearsing it over and over, almost like a speech or you know, a line from a play almost? Did you find that in a way that kind of helped you separate yourself a little bit from the raw emotion of it?
I think yes, and I think that I try and be fairly philosophical about these things. And I thought to myself, okay, what's the difference between me doing well here and me not doing well on stage? And me doing well on stage is just reading what I've written in front of me and reading it my best possible ability. Outside of that, there's not really much I can do. You know, I've written what I've written. It kind of resonates with people, or it doesn't resonate with people. The only thing that could really go wrong is that I stumble my words, or I miss a page out, or whatever happens, sort of thing. So I thought to myself, the only thing I need to focus on is reading the words out that I've written down on a piece of paper as well as I possibly can do. Outside of that, kind of what else can I do, sort of thing. And I try to worry about these things as little as I possibly can do within reason, because I'm a big fan of, you know, if I said to you now, you know, Kristjan, I want you to go on stage in front of 1,000 people, you'd be thinking, oh crap, like if I was like dragging you down and said, right, let's go, you wouldn't have any time to think about it. You'd be like, right, we're here, let's do this. And you'd probably be bricking yourself on stage, but you'd only be bricking yourself once. Whereas if you like, if I said to you 6 months in advance, oh Kristjan, you go on stage, mate, speaking in front of 1,000 people, you'd
put me on the spot. Absolutely.
Exactly. You'd be what almost kind of like being punched twice. So you're punching yourself because you're like, oh, I'm really nervous about it. What if it doesn't go very well? What if I trip up? What if I sneeze? Whatever. And then you actually have to do it anyway. So
and not just that, with your topic, you must have wrestled with, what the fuck have I done? Why have I agreed? There must have been those moments, right?
There was a slight surprise on my side, because I think obviously Toby and Megan did a lot of the organising work there, and I thought to myself, at some point they're going to ask me what my talk's about, because they just messaged me saying, you know, Toby messaged me saying, hey mate, hope you're okay, doing Prop X, this is what it's about, do you want to be into it, sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, great, got a good topic for it, and that was it. So they never came back to me and said, what are you talking about, or what's the subject, or anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, you're not going to ask, I'm not going to tell, sort of thing. So I think it was a bit of a surprise for Toby and Megan as well when I kind of jumped on stage and talked about what I spoke about. So I think for me, it was just about focusing as much as I possibly can do. Now, the one thing I was crystal clear about with the guys who were setting up the stage is I spoke to them quite a lot, and I was like, just to be absolutely clear, there's going to be a podium. There's going to be a podium right here that I can stand behind.
Yeah, I need something.
Yeah, because literally I knew, you know, generally when I talk on stage, even if it's about a state agency, even though I know my stuff and you'll be very well pushed to catch me out when it comes to the state agency side of things, even still, the adrenaline in my body, my hand will shake. Like automatically, even if I know all my stuff.
You don't care. If you're not nervous, you don't care. And that's me talking my old actor brain. You know, you're always worried. If an actor was like, you knew they were going to go on and give a shit performance, because you know, you only worry if you care.
Absolutely. So I knew that my hands would be shaking anyway. And you know that if you've got a piece of paper in your hand, it makes it even, a shaking hand you can hide.
Oh
A
my
shaking
God,
piece of paper, it's like, it like makes it such a bigger thing. So you actually see this bit of paper flapping away and you're trying to read it, and it's a bit of a car crash from there. So I was quite open with the guys and said, look, I need a podium because I'm literally going to plant one hand on the left side, one hand on the right side. I'm not letting go of it for 15 minutes. Like, I'm literally just going to read this, talk, let go with one hand, turn the page, grab back part of it again. So if you look at any picture from me at PropX, I'm holding onto that podium with all my
if there's no podium, I'm not going.
Yeah, literally, because I would be walking around, flap a bit of paper, and it would be 10 times harder. So I was quite specific about that. The biggest thing that surprised me, and actually I spoke to Rob Brady about this afterwards, because obviously Rob did a talk just after about men's mental health as well. And as soon as I got off stage, Toby very kindly, because he didn't know the subject, said, "Oh, we're doing a book signing for Chris, and he's down the front, and give him 20 quid, and he's donated the books. 20 quid goes to charity. Nice thing to do, sort of thing." And literally, I got off stage, and Toby was like, "That was amazing. By the way, you're downstairs in like 30 seconds time." So he's like, run. You run downstairs. You got no time crying or recovering or anything like that. Or like you can run downstairs and start selling some books, sort of thing. So, but within, I would say, the space of 4 minutes, I reckon I've been hugged by 10 different men, which is a bit of a weird sentence to say out loud. And every single one of them was like, I went through something similar, or I lost my partner, or I lost my friend, or I lost my brother. And it was amazing how from, me standing there going, "Oh, I'm the only one who's gone through this, and I'm the only person who's going to be talking about this," to within literally minutes of me getting downstairs, who were going, "Oh my God, when you said about that, I felt like that. And oh my God, my friend did this." And the conversation I had with Rob, I was like, excuse the expression, Rob, but I was like, what the fuck do I say? Like, people come to me like, "Oh, my brother killed himself." And I'm like, "Oh shit, like that's really bad, mate." But then I was like, Rob's obviously does lots of mental health stuff, so he's kind of a bit more seasoned, should we say, with this sort of stuff. And I was like, Rob, I haven't got a clue. Like, I feel like I've been thrown the deep end here, mate. I feel like I've kind of like shared my story, and everyone's kind of coming to me and saying, "Oh, let's talk about this, Chris." And I'm like, I've only just shared my story, guys. Like, I'm not ready to like everyone kind of like not jumping.
I'm not a counsellor.
Yeah, I'm in no way an expert, and I'll tell you what I'm an expert in and what I'm not an expert in. And I'm in no way an expert in mental health or anything like that at all. But it was a really surreal, nice, terrible, whatever it may be, experience to have these people come up to me who are just like, didn't know any of them, couldn't tell you their first name, couldn't tell you their surname. I know they were an estate agent, probably at PropX, and that was it. And it was like, "Hi, mate," huge hug sort of thing, not even any chats. So that was a real sort of surprising moment with me, with how many people actually resonated with that message, and also a little bit depressing at the same time, because I'd rather it was just me and I was like, "This is what I went through," and they're like, "Oh my God, Chris, I've got no idea what you're talking about." But it was worrying / reassuring / whatever you want to call it, that so many people came to me afterwards like, "Oh my God, like I went through something similar 2 years ago, 5 years ago, my cousin's going through that," like all this sort of stuff. And I was like, well, actually, this is pretty amazing in the grand scheme of things. And it didn't stop there. I had lots of people reach out to me on social media, and send me messages via like LinkedIn and Instagram, etc. And lovely words from various people just saying how the story sort of resonated with them and kind of talked through their own journey. So it was really eye-opening. I feel like I shared a lot, but then a lot of people kind of shared back to me, which was absolutely amazing.
And that talking thing is a really important part. It's an interesting thing that you said, instantly there were people who started sharing fragments of stories or statements with you. And it comes back to talking. A common thing, I unfortunately have heard lots of these stories, but there is a general commonality. And it feels like there was a similar commonality with your partner at the time, which was those closest around them had no idea.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, she had no idea.
An inkling that, little bit frustrated, or maybe a bit, something, but nothing of the scale of the severity of the situation. And it's fascinating that it comes back to that talking thing. It comes back to, as we know, suicide is the primary cause of death for, I think, is it men under 40?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or even 45. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. And yet there is still very little open, honest, candid, detailed conversation about it, because as guys, we're just not very fucking good at it. But what we are good, I think, for guys, we're worried that we'll share something, and either the people that we're sharing it with will have absolutely no concept of experience of what we're talking about and will think we're batshit crazy, or that somehow it emasculates us as men, whatever the fuck that means, and somehow by being vulnerable and sharing that, it somehow causes difficulty. And I think, you touched on it, as you said, that these people start saying things, you're like, oh my God, I'm not a mental health professional. And interestingly, that was a very, very big conversation we had before we launched the Boys Club. Headed up by Ben, but myself, Toby Martin, Spencer, Daniel, we've all kind of been bubbling around the background from the offset. And I think Ben crystallized it very early doors. He was like, right, we need to be very fucking clear on what we are, and we are not a mental health service. We are not professionals, we are not experts, we are not here to offer specific guidance or tools or coping mechanisms. We are, and we landed on the fact that we wanted to try and create a safe space where people can share stories and experiences that have impacted their lives. And at the very extreme measure, we've got stories like yours. I think I did the very first one, and I talked about when we got targeted the year before last by a far-right group about our Pride window display. And, we had death threats and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff going on. Not to mention some of our industry celebrating our apparent demise and imminent closure of our business.
You tend to find out. You find out. Yeah.
But no, what's been really interesting is, I think, and so far it's worked. We wanted to do more, but one thing that's come out of it is every story that's been shared over days and weeks following, as people have digested it, because sometimes some see it live and others find time to dip into the group and kind of catch up with what's happened. And the nice thing that happens is every time someone shares a story, there are messages, like you said, of, oh, fuck me, yeah, me too. I've been through that, or I went through something similar. I faced those same emotions. And every single time there is that common theme of, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know who I could talk to. I didn't know I could open up. I wasn't sure what people would think. I can't comment on how women think about this, but there is also a very tight allocation also to career. A very common thing. I say I've heard people share stories with me in person at events. They're kind of taking me aside and go, oh God, and they're kind of going, oh, part of me wants to share it with the Boys Club. But part of me is worried. And when I go, worried about what? The group's really friendly, no one's judgmental. And they're like, yeah, but, I'm this position in this business. And, what will my staff think? What will the other people on the board think? What will my customers think? There is so much concern over other people's reactions to things that we've been through. And I think if we can all just get past that fact that, the vast majority of things we go through, we're far from the first person to go through it. And sadly, in some cases, we're far from the last person that's going to go through it. So, one common thing that comes through with all of these stories of overcoming whatever it is that is thrown in your path in life, other people have been through it. Chatting to Dan Marsden yesterday about his book he's done all about his very overactive, very often negative brain that he has going on in it. And he was saying the fascinating thing was he thought he was the only person whose brain worked like that. He was the only person who thought they had that constant negative voice in the brain. And it was only when he made the decision to write the book, I can't spoil. I mean, you'll come out after the episode, that's fine. But the fascinating thing was he kind of he mapped out the 15 chapters of his book, and he came up with the titles, so he knew exactly what each chapter was going to be. But then really interestingly, he said he started having chats with his kind of circle of friends and people and talking about it, you know, and he'd tell them a little bit the layout. And he said every single conversation he would go through and he would get to a particular name of a chapter and the friend would go, oh yeah, that's me. And he said categorically, everybody he spoke to, when he went through that list, at least one chapter, they'd go, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
My brain does that.
Yeah.
And for Dan, you know, he's very open. He didn't write the book for anyone else. He wrote it for himself. He wrote it as a way to kind of put pen to paper and kind of take ownership of this new position he's taking with the voice in his head. But much like, you know, any of these revelations, when we talk about stuff that we go through, it's astonishing how many people are going through something similar or have been through something similar or will go through something similar. Yep. So yeah, Christ, talking.
Well, I think that you talk about, you know, careers, and I think that, you know, estate agency in its purest form, it doesn't lean itself fantastically to sort of the world of mental health, because, you know, you have somewhat some power of control over your business is external. So you might go on a valuation, think you absolutely smash it, they love me, they think I'm brilliant, our kids are called the same name, they play football at the same time, and they're like, yeah, but it's going with someone else now. Yeah, but they did it for 1%, and you're like, and that's like a bit of a, you know, I thought we're getting on all right. And so I think that you automatically have those sort of highs and lows in your business, you know, day by day. Yeah, great, I smashed that valuation, I got on the market, they absolutely love me. Same pitch, next valuation, oh, they absolutely hated me and they went with someone else. And you're like, you know, is it me? Is it them? So I think that, you know, you are in a business where you are the public face of it. And lots of times when it's going well, it's absolutely amazing. And when it's going terribly, you feel like you're kind of on the firing line. So, and some of that is within your control. But some of that also is outside your control as well. You know, it might have gone well, not gone well to no fault of your own, but you kind of have to suffer the consequences of it. And so when people say to you, you know, how's your business going? You're like, well, you know, not great, or it's going really well. But, you know, in that situation, but that can change 3 times in a day. You know, I've had clients of mine who will phone me first thing in the morning and be like, oh, Chris, I'm having a terrible day today, mate. It's awful. I don't like doing my work anymore. I've had enough of this stage. I'm going to quit, sort of thing. They'll phone me at 4 o'clock and be like, I love this job.
I've had the best day of my life.
Yeah, literally. And you're like, it just changes like the weather, sort of thing. So it doesn't, you know, there's a lack of consistency in the estate agency world where you kind of you throw yourself out there, you throw your marketing out there, your face out there, whatever it may be out there, and then you're kind of hoping somebody will catch it. And when that comes in, that's amazing. When people drop the ball and it doesn't work out, it feels terrible. But the agents deal with that day in, day out. So it's very, you are slightly open to the public on that side.
So I think that leads us into another kind of area of topic I wanted to talk about. And this felt like from your talk, this was quite a big part of the struggles that you had, is this framing of success. Mm-hmm. And I think we live in a world now where there is ever greater pressure, right? We have greater inequality than ever. We have these ridiculous billionaire entities displaying the most insane success the world has ever seen. Then you've got your whole social media kind of catalogue of truly successful people, and then the other kind of 95% who just fake a successful life, or rather fake, give the impression of a successful life, whatever that may be. And then, you know, amplified on top of that, we've got cost of living crisis, you know, all sorts of things. And I think, you know, I think it feels like at the moment, almost more than ever before, people need to be really thinking about what is success. You know, what is your personal, what do you define personally as achieving success? And I think it's really important that as individuals, we do our best to do that and be honest with ourselves, because all of us, you know, we all grow up, and whether we want to impress or make our parents proud, or, you know, siblings, mates, whatever it is, influencers, whoever it is you feel you owe something to, that you somehow want to prove something to, and very quickly, if you're not careful, the dogged pursuit of what you think is success, can just break you down in pieces trying to pursue something. But B, if you're not careful, you can end up getting to your point of success and realizing that actually you don't want any of it.
Yep. And I think that's pretty much, in a nutshell, kind of the journey I went through. So I kind of followed the path that I was kind of supposed to in the grand scheme of things. So that was, that journey we talked about right at the beginning, from junior negotiator to, national performance director. That was kind of the path that was laid out in front of me. And actually, when I got to that stage, I was like, oh, it's not actually sunshines and rainbows here in any way, shape or form. And, I had still have, but had a nice house, had a nice car, went on holidays twice a year sort of thing, had, spare cash in the grand scheme. Yeah, 100%. Good looking girlfriend, all these things that you're on the external, you're like, oh my God, like Chris is absolutely smashing it sort of thing. And the thing that I felt pressure to is for everyone to look at me and go, oh, Chris has got it nailed. It's because that mattered. So back then, that mattered so much to me. People would look at me and be like, oh, Chris has got it sorted. He's got the house. He's got a car. He goes on holiday every 10 minutes.
But again, I think this is a very manly trait as well.
Yeah,
this belief that we have to constantly give this impression that we've got it all figured out, that everything's on track, that, we've got this, it's fine,
And within 3 months or 2.5 months, I had quit the job that took me probably 15 years to get. I had sold my lovely BMW, which I still regret, but it's such a nice car. But I sold my BMW, and house-wise had been rented out. So all the things that I spent all that time and 10, 20 years sort of building up to, they were gone within a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. And we sold all of that stuff and bought a 1999 plate 3.5 ton motorhome, as you do.
Oh, now you're talking my language.
You got to worry about the market for motorhomes when you're doing a straight swap from a nice 4 Series BMW to like a 20-year-old banger of a motorhome. You got to worry about the market.
House on wheels, it can't be too cheap.
They never go down in value apparently. We spent the next 3 months traveling around Europe in a motorhome, and then got back from that, and then we spent the next 9 months in Asia, which we got engaged on kind of like the last week before we came back. And since then I've been very conscious and matter of fact. Now I still probably shuffle with it a bit. If you look at my social media today, you'll see lots of smiling pictures of Chris and giving advice and nice picture of me walking down the street and all the bits and pieces. But I try as much as I possibly can to do like, this is good, this is bad, this went a bit shit, but this is kind of what it is. So I try and be very realistic with people. Kind of at the same time.
Because also, like, social media for us as professionals, it is part of our channel. And I touched on the thing earlier. Oh, what will clients, what will people say? You have to find that balance, because we're not mental health professionals. We're not, you're not trying to carve a career out of some sort of social media personality around that area of expertise. So, no, I think, it's interesting. I think I've made quite a conscious effort, like you said, not to do it too often, but when I have those shit days, and whether that's a shit day that happens to me or I just wake up and it's one of those days where I try and be candid and open about that. And I think what's been really interesting is the few times I do it, what is lovely is in every single instance, there's some really lovely comments put on, but in every single instance, I have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people within about an hour of the post going up, reach out, call, text, WhatsApp, whatever. Dude, you okay?
Yep. Yeah, we had Megan 18 on our podcast about 6 months ago, I think it was, and she was talking about the time in her career where obviously it's great on social media when you're doing well and when you're getting promoted and we've just sold this many houses or rent this many, like it's amazing, everyone loves you sort of thing. And then Megan was like, yeah, then I lost my job. And I actually had to come on social media and be like, yes, I've lost my job. And this is kind of what's happened. So it's super easy to say like, oh, it's going really well and I'm listing and selling properties and I'm getting promoted. But when sort of shit hits the fan and you're like, I've just lost my job, I've been made redundant, or I've just had a change of career, that's where it kind of really takes their cojones to come up and say, actually, this is what's going on. And the number of times that, I've talked to people who've done posts like that, and the people are just, as exactly as you said there, who've gone out the wood working on everything right, mate. What can I do to help sort of thing? Let me connect you with so-and-so. Let me put you up with so-and-so. Oh, you'll be perfect at this company. And people want to help what they can do. But I think the natural inclination, which is, 95, 99% of all social media is like, I'm on holiday or I'm doing this or I'm smashing it. So I have this conversation with my clients all the time. And the biggest kind of change that I've had probably in the last couple of years or so is I've changed my mindset from being a consumer of social media to a producer of social media. And although social media wise, we post twice a day on all platforms. We have a YouTube short, 2 YouTube videos a week, 4 podcasts per week, a bulk email every week, a LinkedIn newsletter every week. So we're pumping it out at quite an alarming rate. I would say I spend on average 3 minutes a day on social media.
Wow. I've definitely done a similar pivot. I definitely, like you say, I definitely see myself as more a producer of content than a digester of content. I still have my moments. I will still have my scroll sessions. But I'm very quick. Like anything kind of generally negative, unless it's technical, unless it's talking factually about something, I block and remove stuff. I don't want to hear the bad stories. I don't want to hear bad stuff. I want to hear what amazing things my friends and people I know have been up to. Maybe hear about some of the struggles they're up to as well, because you're not always up to speed with what's going on. Check in with them. And then, hear about amazing things. I love hearing about new scientific evolutions that have happened. All the scientific movements that are happening at the moment are incredible. I love hearing good news. And who doesn't love a soppy animal video?
Give me a service person coming back from being away for 4 years and meeting their golden retriever the next year. Like, I'll cry for that.
Like a bear and a tiger being best friends. That's another one of mine. Different species of animal hanging out.
I think we need to look at it and go, is me scrolling social media, is it serving me? And the average person will look at social media for 4 hours a day. And and that isn't the 15-year-olds. That's people that are 40, 50, and 60. It's about 4 hours a day. So we're not talking like the whippersnapper.
And again, as we know how the algorithms work, what you engage with.
Yep.
And I think we're seeing very much a knock-on effect of that right now. All this craziness going on in the country right now.
Yep.
A lot of it is because, like you said, a lot of these people and there's someone in my inner circle who is kind of in that matrix of just doom and gloom.
Yep, I gave up the news.
Engaged with because it initially interested them, but now I was with them the other day and they're on their Facebook page, and it is literally you scroll down it, and it is literally horrendous story after horrendous story. And it's like no wonder you're depressed about where this country is, because you're literally sat in this like negative news funnel of cacophony of crap that just tells you that everything in this country is broken.
Yep. And
life is shit.
I gave up. I think I probably gave up watching the news 4 or 5 years ago, I would say. And I don't really read the newspapers unless there's if I pick up a newspaper, I skim it for something particularly interesting. Maybe a bit of sport, something technological, a good news story that's come out of somewhere. But otherwise... Well, you can't, as you said, you can't allow a lot of sort of, I don't want to say toxic, but negative, whatever you say, stuff that doesn't make you happy into your life, and then wonder why you're kind of like not in the place you want to be. So I would look at it, having a happy life. This is my own view on it. You can have your own view on how it may be, but my personal view is, what does a good day look like? And for me, a good day is, meeting new people, helping people, and seeing new places. And so if I'm having as many days in a row where I'm doing those particular things, high five, Chris is having a good day. That's legit. So, if it's leaning into those things, great, I'm all over that. So, I'm very lucky that I've kind of now given myself a career or a job, or, made myself unemployable, whatever the official term is, where I can literally do that every single day. And so I can, travel around the country and if I want to, and I can meet people every single day because you've given yourself the platform to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people lose sight of how much time we spend at work. Because it's something we have to do. You don't kind of contextualize it as such. I've got to go to work. I've got to go and do my 40 hours a week or whatever it is to pay the bills, to turn up. And you just kind of, it's something I've got to do. I've got to have a job, and I turn up to do the job, and I do what's expected of me to some degree of passability or success. And then I come home to live my life. The unfortunate reality of that is, if you work an 8-hour day and you commute an hour either side, that's 10 hours, and you factor in everything else. When you think the amount of waking at engaged hours you spend at work with your colleagues, versus the time over your career that you spend with your friends, your family, your loved ones, your children, the disparity is insane, right? The disparity is absolutely insane. And so people lose sight of the fact how important it is that you get enjoyment from what you do.
Yep.
And whether that is being involved in an organization that does something that you're proud or happy with, whether we've talked about whether that is achieving whatever success in your eyes, you know, whatever it is, I think we all have a duty to ourselves. And it's not always easy. It's not always possible, because sometimes you've just got to go out and you've got to do whatever job you can do.
Yep.
Pay the rent and keep a roof over your head and put food on the table. But you have to keep asking that question. You have to keep nudging yourself, because forcing yourself to turn up 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to do a job, at best, you have no real feeling about it either way. At worst, you hate. To work with people that at best you kind of get on with, at worst, you despise and bully and tease each other. You know, to put yourself through that day in, day out, month in, month out, year after decade, you know, we've got to try and break out of that kind of apathy about it. Yeah, it's all right, it's a job. Keep trying to find those moments of joy. Keep trying to. It might not be changing job. It might be just recrafting what it is you do, or re-navigating your role within the business, or staying in the same sector but finding a company that does things differently. You know, but I think, you know, a lot of us would go through life generally a lot happier if we just focused on achieving more joy at work.
I think we're very, you know, say what you like about, you know, UK and welfare and whatever it may be. I think we're very lucky in the UK that isn't kind of that far to fall in the grand scheme of things. You know, one of my friends lives in Nairobi in Kenya, and if you're homeless over there, for example, like you've got a tough life. Like you are, you know, being beaten up twice a day, and it's, you know, it's really, really tough life. I think in the UK, there's only so far to fall. Like you're probably not going to be sleeping on the street, because you go to the council and say, look, I've just broken up my partner, or I've just been repossessed, whatever it may be, and they will house you very quickly. So there's only so far to fall in the UK, which I think is kind of there as a nice safety net. And I think that, you know, generally speaking, if your friends and family around you, you know, truly love you, they just want you to be happy. So one of my friends is a oil trader by trade. I know, boo hiss. He probably earns 350 grand a year, I reckon, roughly speaking. So really, like, lovely guy, you know, he doesn't bash it too much. But he's like, right, part of my 10-year plan is to be an oil trader for 10 years. And once I finish that, I'll be a postman. And I'm like, fair play. He's like, yeah, but by that point, I would have earned my money. I don't need to work in London anymore. I'll just be a postman. I'll work for like 6 hours a day, get up nice early, walk down the street.
Gets me active, keeps me moving, meeting people.
And I'm like, mate, fair play. Like, I don't care if you're going from an oil trade to a postman from 300 grand to 30 grand. I make, as long as you're happy, I literally can give a monkeys. Like, if that's your goal, go for it.
In those super high pressure, high success jobs, that's quite a common story. You know, you hear that quite a lot, whether it's intended or burnout forces it. But I think the smart ones, like you say, are like, right, I've got a plan. The next decade is work. Like, my life revolves around work, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be pressure, and it's going to be at times horrendous. But at the end of those 10 years, I'm set for life.
Yep. I remember meeting a guy, we had a developer who we were working with, and quite a long time he was like, oh, the money guy's turning up soon. The guy who's funding all this is turning up. And he was building like, you know, £5-6 million houses. So also it was quite a lot of money. And obviously if someone said, oh, the investment person's walking in, you would think it's going to be a 70-year-old white man, bit wrinkly, walking in a suit. This guy walked in and he must have been 29, flip-flops, trucker hat sort of thing, American guy, made his money on Wall Street, quit early, and now it's just like, yeah, let's do what I like. And I'm like, well, fair play, mate. You've had a plan, you've started doing kind of the way you go, something. You know what you're getting into, and you come out the other side sort of thing. So I think, you know, there is a time to knuckle down, but I think if that knuckle down turns into forever, then that's a different conversation. So I think that being happy in your workplace, in whatever form that may be, should be a really big priority in your life. And if you talk to your partner or family. You know, if you turn around and say, look, you know, I'm unhappy at work and I'm desperately sad, I would rather be doing this. It means I earn half the amount of money. I would hope that person would turn around and go, that's an easy choice. Yeah, we'll make it work. So we go from 2 holidays to 1 holiday or to no holidays. Like, as long as you make it work, then that's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, my wife and I had a similar conversation when she was pregnant with our first kid. You know, we talked about, you know, living in London. We still rent. I've been renting in London now 25 years. Do some horrendous calculations of what we spend.
Yeah, don't work that one out. Don't work that one out.
Yeah, I try. But, you know, living on a single income is tough. But, you know, we had this very open conversation when she was pregnant with Elvie, our first kid. You know, she said, look, I want to do some part-time work because I want something. But she was like, I want to be a hands-on mum. Until they go to school, until they go off to school, I want to be in their lives every day. I want to be part of it. That's not to say, you know, we don't have nursery or whatever. But, you know, and exactly like you said there, you know, the conversation was, we'll make it work for as long as we can make it work.
Yep.
And, you know, 7 years in, we're still there because we timed it awesomely. Just as Elvie was going off to school, we got pregnant. Haley got pregnant with our son Arlo, and we started the whole cycle again. And yeah, we've made it work. At times it's been tough, but they're really important things. And I think, again, children always make you crystallize it. And I've shared this kind of anecdote a few times on different podcasts, but, you know, I read a couple of things early doors. Can't remember whether it was when Haley was pregnant or when Elvie was very young, but around that time. And it was basically people who, you know, had done the kind of entrepreneurial thing, had built a big business, had done it for the family, but had dedicated, as is often the case and is often needed, 10, 15, 20 years of their life building this beast of a business to then go, ta-da, we're free. I've got my, whatever, £15 million exit, and that's it. We're going to live the life of Riley, you know. And they turned around to their kids to be like, come on, guys, what are we going to do? And the kids were like, shut up. We're off out with our mate. Who are you?
Yeah.
No relationship with their kids. You know, and they built this thing about, oh, you know, when we get there, we'll be able to do X, Y, Z. But if you don't build those relationships, there is nothing to build on later on. And actually, most kids don't give a shit about whether you live in a big house or a small house or drive a big car or a small car or a flash one. Sure, they might, you know, sure, their eyes light up if you do something a little bit flashy with some children. But in the vast majority, it's you and your time that is so precious. And the message in those was, you know, that first 10 to 12 years of your kids' lives, you are everything to your kids. You know, you are literally the provider of all things: their joy, their happiness, their safety, their adventure, their food, their shelter, you know, everything. You don't get that back. You don't get that back. So, you know, we made that commitment of, for us, you know, talking about what is your joy, what is your success. Our joy is seeing our kids flourish. Part of our joy is having what we hope is a very strong relationship with our children that is going to see us continue that through teens and into adulthood and beyond. And the battles and sacrifices and challenges that we face now, you know, we feel are absolutely worth it. You know,
but I think it's the mistake that I've made historically, and I think many people fall into this trap as well, is they kind of fall into the trap of like someday we'll take our kids away and say, like, I'll just do one more year of work and then we'll do that. I will just do one more, just a little bit more money and then we'll get so and so. And so from a personal point of view, I had a little bit of a cancer bullet dodge a little while ago. I think no matter how, you know, big or brave you are, you get that letter from the doctor saying, you know, you've got an appointment with a cancer unit. You're like, fuck, that one hit home pretty quickly. And you know, I remember going to my partner and I remember saying to her, look, I know we're engaged sort of thing, but I was like, we need to get married like soon. I was like, I don't want this to be like a 10-year engagement or like a 5-year engagement. I was like, we haven't got forever. Let's kind of like, let's get on with it like sooner rather than later, because otherwise they're like, oh, even though both of us are like, oh, we'll get married at some point. But yeah, it's fine. We love each other. We live together. Like, we'll get married at some point. As soon as that came to my front door, I was like, fuck, like we need to get on with this like pronto. Otherwise,
unfortunately, it often takes these scary things or these big events to bring it back into focus. But I think we need to try and get ourselves into a healthy mental space where you don't need something absolutely terrifying to go, you know, Am I really doing what's happy? You know, like you say, want to get married? Let's get fucking married. Just do it.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, well, my partner's very good at she watches she's kind of fallen into you talk about social media algorithm, she's fallen into a bit of a rabbit hole with regard to advice from elderly people, I think is probably the official term, and it's kind of like TikToks, people who are 90 years old, 100 years old, and it's like, you know, what's the regret in your life? And so many of them are like, I wish I spent less time worrying about work, I wish I spent more time with family. And so we kind of like, instead of actually just watching that advice, actually trying to take it on board as much as possible. So, you know, if those people are saying, I wish I didn't work so hard, or I wish I, you know, turned my phone off at 6 o'clock, or I wish I did so and so, you're kind of like, well, they've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So it'd be a bit stupid of me to go, oh no, they don't know. They don't know
a different generation.
Exactly. They don't, what do they know about it? They haven't got ChatGPT.
So they're very similar.
Exactly. So I think
really fundamentally change as creatures over time.
100%. So I think that you got to look at what is your happiness in your life and what's going to make you kind of enjoy your life, because you only get one kind of crack at it. And, you know, I think that you might as well, you know, go shit or bust. For me, that's kind of my personal thing. I think to myself, bugger it, you know, worst case scenario, if it all goes completely wrong, I'll go, mum, dad, I need to sleep on your sofa.
And what an amazing experience.
I love it. I got my food will get made, my laundry will get done. Like, I'll be living the life. I'll be like falling around my feet. You know, that is for me, that is a worst case scenario. That is kind of what would happen. And, you know, so for me, I think to myself, well, the only real way from there is up. So why not swing for it as hard as I possibly can do? So I think it's about looking at what's important to you, what makes you happy, and going, how can I get more of those happy events in my life? And also, on the other side of the coin, how can I take more of these sort of sad moments, whether that's social media or the news or a depressing mate who always drags you down, whatever it may be, and go, actually, let's get rid of the bits I don't like and let's keep the bits I do like, which sounds like the most obvious advice you can give somebody, but it's really hard when it's your own life.
The advice often is obvious. You know, again, none of this is rocket science. We're all fairly simple creatures. Everything we've talked about in here, find your joy and, you know, frame what success is for you. And none of this is earth-shattering shit. I mean, you can get it out of the fucking fortune cookie, or you can get it out of a 300-page self-guidebook. Fundamentally, the core principles that drive us as humans and make us happy never really change. Look, Chris, this has been an absolute joy. I've absolutely loved our chat, and that hour, or just under an hour, has absolutely flown by. But I feel like we've reached a really nice point. I think we've covered a really nice topic. I think, you know, thank you once again. Like your chat, I loved the courage that you took to share on that stage. Well done. Thank you. As men, we need to be more brave. We need to be more brave by being more vulnerable. And that will happen through the support of people around us, but also one another, reassuring each other that, admitting that we're all rather quirky, foibled people who, despite appearances, have all sorts of shit going on in our lives, and that's okay, is great.
I think no matter what, we're all working it, we're all kind of blagging it, we're all kind of working out on our feet, and that's absolutely fine. So no one's got the winning formula quite yet. We're all kind of blagging it and kind of going from there. So I think that's absolutely fine for everyone to be in that position. Chris,
thank you so much for your time today, buddy. And
thank you so much.
In person sometime soon.
It's been amazing. Thanks so much, Kristjan.
Cheers, mate.